Rise up, let us stand and listen to the Holy Gospel. Peace be with you all.
And with your spirit.
The reading of the Holy Gospel according to St. Luke.
Glory to you, O Lord. Glory to you.
Be attentive. At that time Jesus arrived at the country of the Gadarenes, which is opposite Galilee. And as he stepped out on land, there met him a man from the city who had demons. For a long time he had worn no clothes, and he lived not in a house, but among the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he cried out and fell down before him. I said with a loud voice, What have I to do with you, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beseech you, do not torment me. For Jesus had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. For many a time it had seized him. He was kept under guard and bound with chains and fetters, and he broke the bonds and was driven by demons into the wilderness. Jesus asked him, What is your name? And he said, Legion, for many demons had entered him, and they begged Jesus not to command them to depart into the abyss. Now a large herd of swine was feeding there on the hillside, and they begged Jesus to let them enter these. So he gave them leave. Then the demons came out of the man and entered the swine, and the herd rushed down at the steep bank into the lake, where they were drowned. When the herdsmen saw what had happened, they fled and told it in the city and in the country. The people went out to see what had happened, and they came to Jesus and found the man whom the demons had gone, sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed in his right mind, and they were afraid. And those who had been told them how he had been possessed with the demons was healed. Then all the people of the surrounding country of the Gadarenes asked Jesus to depart from them, for they were seized with great fear. And he got into the boat and returned. The man whom the demons had gone begged that he might be with Jesus, but Jesus sent him away, saying, Return to your home and declare all that God had done for you. And he went away proclaiming through the whole city all that Jesus had done for him.
Glory to you, O Lord. Glory to you. The Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the Most High, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you.
Please be seated. Glory to Jesus Christ.
Glory forever.
Good morning.
Good morning.
In today's gospel reading, we hear of a location called the Gadarenes. Now, we must go back a little bit in time to understand where the Gadarenes is, but not the location, but where it was spiritually in that area. When Moses had exited Egypt and they had been freed, some of the tribes of Israel, as they were traveling, decided that because they had cattle and they had livestock, that this area that was on the opposite side of Galilee was a place that they should stay. Instead of traveling across the area where the promised land, close to the promised land would be, they decided they were going to stay in this area. And the Gadarenes, coming from the name of the tribe of Gad, and some of the other tribes, stayed on this side, and therefore it's called the Gadarenes. On the opposite side of the lake was Galilee. Now, Jesus had gotten into a ship and went over to the Gadarenes. And while he was there, he encountered a man who had been demon-possessed. Now, I want you to understand that these people, the tribes, they settled for somewhere other than they were supposed to be, right? Oftentimes, we in our spiritual walk do the same thing, right? Oftentimes, we instead of continuing pressing on to the promised land, we decide that we're going to take the easy street and we're going to remain behind. And we remain somewhere between where Jesus wants us to be and where the world wants us to be. I call it living in the gray, right? Because Jesus told us, right? You have to be black or white, right? Holy or unholy. There's no in between with God. There's no in between with Christ and where he wants us to be. And these people had decided they wanted to stay behind and they wanted to be where the good fields were instead of continuing with the rest of the tribes. Now, as Jesus encountered this man, he had demons, right? Not only did this man have demons, but I want you to think about this, and with all the things that are going on in the world, right? They possessed him, right? You've heard this term in the present day. They, them, correct? They possessed him. He comes out to Jesus and says, "O God of the Most High, why are you here to torment me before the time? Why are you here?" Now, these demons recognized Jesus. These demons recognized God. Right? Even when all the people in the surrounding areas did not recognize Jesus, even the demons feared and trembled before God. And they recognized Jesus. And Jesus asks them a question. Who and what is your name? He says, "My name is Legion, for we are many." Now, of course, Legion's probably a little bit far-fetched. I doubt that this man had thousands of demons in him. But nonetheless, that's what the demon answered Jesus. "My name is Legion." Okay? So we have to look at this person because they tried to bind him in chains and they tried to keep him under guard. Now, one thing we need to understand, it doesn't matter how dark the person is, most times we do not see demon possession today. And we do see it. We do see it every once in a while. The churches have specific people called exorcists that go and do those things. And at one time, I'd even asked Metropolitan Gregory about something such as becoming an exorcist. But he said, typically married clergy are not exorcists because when the demons come out, they'll go after the family of the people. The spiritual warfare that we encounter today is oftentimes met with criticism because Satan has done a good job of convincing people he just doesn't exist. He doesn't exist. Therefore, there's nothing for us to fight. But the truth is, all of us in this room, if we have listened or watched what has been happening, especially the last few years, we can see that the war is very close to us. How many people have you encountered in your lifetime that has been through divorces? How many people in your lifetime has been through abuse? How many people through your lifetime has been through all treacherous and terrible things that have driven them away from God? I can dare say I've seen many, many people going through all sorts of different things in all their life. And yet, still, their heart is hardened and they refuse to acknowledge God even when the demons acknowledge him. And Jesus, he says, he cast them out, right? Because the demons requested to be cast into the herd of swine. Now, a lot of times when we read this, a lot of people have been like, oh, how can Jesus destroy these people's property? How can these demons were their livelihood? It's true. It's true that these pigs, right, were their livelihood. But the thing is what do we know about the Jews? What do we know about the tribes of Israel and swine? Right? They weren't supposed to have them. Their livelihood was based on sin. Their livelihood was based on going against the very tenets that their faith taught. And they weren't supposed to have any kind of pork products, but yet they were having a herd of swine. And Jesus, what did he do? He cast these demons into the swine and destroyed not only the demons that were there were the possession and got this man whole in his mind, but also destroyed the sin that these men were doing. And the thing we need to do as a footnote, the thing that we must understand about the Gadarenes is when the Assyrians came, the first place that they conquered was Gadarenes. The first place that fell were these people that were mediocre in their faith, were mediocre in what they took as their faith. Because with God, again, we have to be one side or the other. I had once heard this very interesting little tidbit where it said that one time there was people and there was a fence in the middle. And one side belonged to Satan and the other side belonged to Jesus. And as they were collecting people, people were going with Jesus and people were going with Satan. And one guy decided to sit on the fence. And as they went away, Satan came up to the man at the fence and said, "Come on, you're coming with me." He says, "No, I didn't choose you, and nor did I choose him. I just want to remain neutral. I want to remain in the gray." And Satan says, "Oh, but you must understand, I own the fence." Because you cannot remain gray, you cannot remain neutral with our faith. Our Orthodox church, our beloved church, the people, as we see, especially today, when we celebrate the man called James, Iakovos in Greek, right? Iakovos, the brother of James, it is believed when Joseph died, he separated all of his stuff between his sons. But the sons got angry when he wanted to leave a little bit to Jesus, and James decided that he was going to share his property, his portion with Jesus. And when he did that, he became in love with Christ. And he decided to follow Christ. And when he saw the crucifixion, he ended up becoming one of the bishops in Jerusalem and served there for many, many years. And there is where we get the first liturgy of St. James. And one day, God willing, I'll get permission and we can do the liturgy of St. James here. Because the liturgy of St. James differs where not only do we receive the Eucharist, but you actually receive the Eucharist straight from the chalice. Everybody does. That's the liturgy of St. James. But St. James remained faithful to God all of his life. He loved Christ and he spread the message, and the people of Jerusalem hated him for it. They recognized Jesus and they hated Jesus that was in him. And they threw him off the top of the temple. And when he didn't die at the bottom of the temple, somebody came up with a club and hit him so hard in the head it killed him. St. James is who we celebrate today because he decided even the brothers, the half-brothers, right, of Jesus, these brothers, these people that Jesus had associated with him all of his life, out of all the brothers that he had, right, the Virgin Mary had Jesus and Joseph had all the brothers on the other side. Only one of them decided that they were going to follow Christ. And that's the decision that we all have to make. Again, I use Joshua as an example of going to the Promised Land. I do not care who the other people worship, but as for me and my house, we shall serve the Lord. Right? Because what happened? When the people came and saw the man who had been demon-possessed, this man was completely naked. You got to remember, he lived in the tombs. He lived among the dead. He was completely naked, not in his right mind, and he would terrify people that were walking by. But when Jesus healed him, when Jesus cast out the demons, the people came and they looked at the man and saw him sitting at the foot of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind. And they asked, "What happened?" And they said, they explained what happened about the demons going into the swine. And they were afraid. They were terrified about Jesus coming and destroying their livelihood. They were terrified about Jesus destroying the money that they had. And you know what they asked Jesus to do? Leave. We don't want you here anymore. But Jesus, this man who had been given his life back, given his mind back, begged Jesus, "Please, I want to come with you. I want to dwell with you. I want to live with you." And Jesus says, "No, you need to stay here. You need to be a witness to me." Because everybody in that area knew this man because of the demons that were in him. But Jesus left somebody behind to remind them every single day that that God was real. And that man was not allowed to go with Jesus because Jesus wanted his light to be there and give those people a chance to repent and come to their senses. That's what Jesus does to us. That's what Jesus does for every single one of us in our life. There often comes a time in our life where we have to make a decision. Because life, it's hard. There's nothing easy about this life here on earth. We struggle with our health. We struggle with our friendships. We struggle with our families. We struggle with our church. We struggle with our bills. We struggle with our homes. We struggle with every single thing that comes along. We struggle. And sometimes Satan, he overwhelms us with a legion of problems. And when he overwhelms with those legions of problems, he overtakes us. And we are just as possessed as the man who was at the Gadarenes. And we break the chains and we decide that we don't want to be bound by holiness. We don't want to be bound by righteousness. We don't want to be bound by goodness. And we don't want to be bound by anything that resembles God. And we rebel against God. And we turn away from him. And we run. But that's why God puts specific people in specific places to remind you of the light. To remind you that he is real. And that you're not alone. And that you're not going through this by yourself. That's why the church is the people, not the building. The church is the people. And the people are the ones that come here just like a hospital. We are a hospital for all the people that are sick in this world. Because if you don't need to be here, then you've got a problem. But everybody that comes here is coming to the throne of grace, asking God to be merciful and to be gracious to us. And every time we say, Lord, have mercy, when we say those petitions, we come to God and we ask him, please, Lord, break the chains that are on us. Break the things that are holding us down and help us to come into our right mind so that way we can be with you and we can sit at your foot and we can be the people that are left behind that can be the light to the world. As for me and my house, we shall serve the Lord. As for me and my house, we will turn to the Lord. As for me and my house, we will become the people that we so desperately need to be, because we need to be looking up to these saints that are on the walls, because these people walked and lived and dwelled with Christ so closely that now we call them saints. They are set apart, and we're supposed to emulate them. That's why when we become Orthodox Christians, if you are a convert, you get an Orthodox name. You take on the name of a saint, so that way you can start looking forward to the person that you can become. And not only do you look forward to the person that you can become, you look forward to the person that you can become and exceed them, because God does not want us to stop where the saints are. He wants us to get to the place where he is. He wants to get us to a place where we have broken all the chains and swept off all the darkness and coming out of the tomb in order for us to be right with God. Let us glorify and praise the name of the Lord today and worship his holy name.
Amen.